if I take a broader perspective than just looking at talent and culture or people here, I would argue that such an industry or industries, they will become visible through other topics, such as sustainability.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello and welcome to episode 242 of the Shipping Podcast. In this episode, we will discuss human resource work within the logistical industry. Is there a way to work differently and achieve development and change in an industry as conservative as the maritime industry? How do we change the current mindset that people are replaceable to something with a more human approach to how we work? It's a challenge, but one that can inspire us to rethink our approach to work. In this episode, you will listen to not only one conversation, but two. First, we have Kriss Petersson. She is head of talent and culture at Aeler Technologies. She explains this new way of working with the people and culture mindset. And then Mariana Levtov from episode 203 comes in and gives us her experiences with this new way of working with the new mindset as she recently joined Aeler. Be sure to stick around for Mariana's comments to the interview with Kriss Petersson. I hope you will enjoy the conversations today.
Every conversation matters.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Lena. My name is Kriss Petersson. I am the head of talent and culture at Aeler. Aeler is a logistic tech company that is providing a smart container solution and service to the logistic industry as a whole. And I'm working here since almost 3 years now. I didn't start my career here at all. I started my career in art industry, actually. I went to the university in Chicago called DePaul, and I studied IT project management, and before that, business administration. So shipping industry was quite off my radar to start with.
And how did you end up in our beautiful industry?
Yeah, it's well, as I said, I started in the art industry, but more importantly, I started in a startup, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience from start to finish. It was busy, it was difficult, it was a little bit learn or die mentality, and after that, I moved back to Europe, and I got a job at MSC. Actually, I switched the coin completely from startup to large organization. It was an interesting experience. The shipping industry was very interesting. However, the organization itself was a bit too large, I think, for where I was in my career. I wanted to learn differently. And so I started consulting. I consulted for a company in London, a dating application. So again, an industry shift. After which I went back to the shipping industry and landed at Aeler, and this time around in a startup, now scale up. So I combined the two, the industry and the type of organization.
A dating app. Yeah, it sounds like me. I feel like a walking Tinder from time to time because I connect a lot of people.
I understand that. It was an interesting experience.
So what do you do today? What is your responsibility?
So what I do today as head of talent and culture, I'm responsible for the people side of the business. This is the easiest way to put it. We have been quite adamant from start to put in place a people-oriented culture, something that we're now shifting a little bit towards a people and performance-oriented culture. McKinsey actually came out with a super interesting report on this topic last year and really showing the benefits of having both. But in short, it's an industry that could use a more human approach to how we work. And this is my job today. I'm working with organizational design, helping to structure the business as a whole based on people resources, based on business needs. And really at the core of it, I am tying together business metrics and KPIs and the people that are working in the company. The shift here is quite fundamental. It's the old, I'm saying always, HR school, moving to a people and culture mindset where you see people as your first asset. You can have money, you can have funding, you can have everything actually, but if you don't have people to perform the job and that likes performing it and do it well, then you're not going to achieve much.
Well, I've heard for years about that. The people working for you, the workforce is your asset. But in what way do you do this a different way?
One of the main things I would say is focusing on a culture that allows for psychological safety. It is, again, to draw the parallel to the industry, it is something that we don't see that much. The shipping industry, logistic industry across the board is a quite conservative industry for several reasons. It's been around for a long time. It's been working good enough. Before COVID, people didn't really think about the logistic industry because everything was working. So why look under the hood? And with COVID happening, some of the logistic crisis with that, and also with the push in environmental regulations as well, we started kind of looking under the hood of this industry, and it is quite conservative. So to shift a mindset and allow for, how can I say this, to move away from a more traditional way of looking at a workforce where people are completely replaceable. They are industrial workers going to work from 8 to 5. I mean, this is a 1950s kind of mindset. And in all honesty, the world has changed a lot since then. The tech industry has pushed this a lot, which is wonderful. And now we're kind of seeing that being implemented in this setting, which is great. And so the mindset, I would say, to go back to your question, is really the core investment here. And then you can do that with a number of different mechanisms, which we can talk about, but yes.
So that is about the mindset. Can you give me a few examples of how you've done this?
First point I want to make is that you have to be data-driven. So when I say we are pushing a mindset, yes, that is the overall agenda and the important shift. However, you need to know how to push it. And the only way to do that is by being data-driven. I will say that traditionally speaking, people, functions, and HR has lacked this kind of data-driven mindset, but it has started shifting as well. And I do think that it's absolutely core. What we've done on our side is that we've implemented employee engagement surveys. We are continuously measuring ENPS, like one of our main KPIs, and things like this. And a very concrete example is the ENPS survey we sent out at the end of last year. I believe it was end Q3. And the results that we got back was that the 3 most important things for our people was work flexibility, which is something that we see across, globally speaking, not only the logistics industry. It was compensation and benefits, so feeling rewarded for the performance and recognized for it, also a global trend since COVID. And the last one was professional development, which is also a global trend. So we are very much on target here, no exception. And what we've done on the back of this is literally we've implemented a full-fledged employee development framework. We have a talent development tool. We have career paths. So to set clear expectations of, hey, to be successful in your role, you need this. And then this is how we'll support you to get there with a learning management system, trainings, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this inside a feedback mechanism, both biannually, so a 360 feedback review, self-assessment and self-reflection, but then more continuously through one-on-ones. And that's when the manager education and manager support comes in to place as well, right? And here, TNC really plays a supportive and overarching kind of role where we read the reports, we talk with the managers, we provide support to the managers, because as a manager, you are experiencing and having a lot of pressure when it comes to implementing and taking care of employee engagement. And it's important to not leave them alone. We're really there for the managers as well as the employees. We also are currently implementing a harmonized compensation framework. We're quite young as a company, so this is something that we're doing full-fledged for the first time. We're implementing a benefit package to really improve this. And I'm going to go back to the example here. The collaboration of the people is absolutely crucial, because first you ask, what is it that is important for you to understand them? This is your target audience. If we're talking marketing, this is our customers. And then you make them participate in, how do you do it? How do we do it? And that is exactly the mentality shift that we talked about before. We are a team. We are on the same side. And what I will say here is linked to the mindset shift I'm mentioning so much. It's really to break that pattern of employee, employer, and employer sitting almost like a big hawk, a crow on top of the employee as the ruler. And again, this old 1950s kind of mindset, employer-employee relationship, and shifting that to their two bubbles sitting next to each other, and they're having a conversation. It is a relationship that you enter into. You have rights, the other one have rights, they have limitations as well on the other side. And to keep that conversation open, it's absolutely crucial to succeed.
Thank you. So can you change me? I mean, I am the age of the people who are probably at the C-level in most companies. So how could I change my mindset to become more focused on talent and culture?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that anyone is capable of change at any point in their life. It might not always be, sometimes you're in a situation or a period of life where change is more difficult, and it might not be the time to address that and poke in that direction. But anyone is capable of change. I truly believe that. Now, everyone comes from, has a different backpack, different perception, and we're starting from different points. So if we're talking about this specific shift, then depending on your education and your experiences, we might take different approaches. But there are a couple of fundamental mechanisms that you can always kind of start initiating the mindset and opening the mind up, let's say, to even be receptive to certain things, right? One of the things that we've done this is to very, very early on introduce a feedback mechanism, feedback paired with psychological safety. This is something that we've pushed very, very hard. First of all, actually bottom up and not top bottom. Top bottom has been the traditional way of doing it, addressing it through management themselves, which is very important. I am not saying the opposite. So what we've done on our side is to implement this bottom to top. It has always had the support of our two CEOs, who are both quite adamant about having a supportive and people-oriented culture. However, by implementing it bottom to top, and rather than going through the, traditional channel of just educating managers and then leaving it to their responsibility to cascade this to the team, it has allowed us to, throughout the entire organization, having ambassadors of this mindset. Anyone does feel that, I hope, this is how I'm going to put it, I hope can feel that they have someone, regardless if it's someone from the TNC team or someone else in their team, a peer, their direct managers, but they have someone to whom they can express themselves safely. And they know that that information is kept. It is not going to bite them in the back later on. And what you avoid with implementing this is that you remove politics. You'll never remove politics 100%. I don't think it's possible, unfortunately. We are humans. We do have character traits that are just there. But you do remove a lot of the politics, which you often see in larger organizations or more conservative organizations. You also remove ego. It's something that we have worked a lot. This helps a lot. Ego here, you can be defensive. You can have a difficult day. You can have a defensive moment because it's something that you care a lot about, or you're a little bit insecure. We all have our insecurities, right? However, this is when it becomes important to first poke a hole in it immediately and then give support. Hey, I noticed that you were defensive. Is there something to talk about? Is there something that you're finding difficult? How can I help? I am on your team. I am not someone to fight.
So how many people work at Aeler?
Right now we're 60 employees.
And how many people are there in the talent and culture group?
We're four, with myself included. We have a new team member coming on board very soon, which will actually be focused on employee engagement solemnly. And so very, very excited about that, and quite early on for the size of the company. But it's also a very conscious choice. Let's put it this way.
So how did you start? I mean, did you bring together a lot of people who have the same background that you have? Not the same, of course, because you need different backgrounds. So how did you set up the team?
So the way what we've implemented very early on in our recruitment process was to hire for diversity of thought. That's the diversity that we want. That is what brings innovation. We are an innovative company. We do need diversity of thought. It's actually crucial for us. We are hiring with diversity in mind in terms of gender, in terms of nationality, other diversity metrics across the board. But the other part is that we have as a hiring filter set as high as the technical and hard skills, the soft skills. So we're hiring for soft skills, mindset, a certain culture, right? You don't have to think the same way, but you need to have an open-mindedness. You need to have a self-awareness of a certain level. It becomes more important, quite evidently, if we're hiring a senior manager. They need to have a high level of self-awareness. But just to level these two skills on the same level has helped us a lot. Because then if we go back to what I mentioned earlier, you already have a receptiveness from the people to actually learn new things. And I think that's it. People are still learning.
The day you stop learning, you're dead.
Yes, I fully agree.
You need to learn new things all the time, I think.
I fully agree. Yeah. I tend to say that it's like a pond. If you have a river that is flowing, it's wonderful and it's alive. But as soon as this stops and it becomes like a stagnant pond, you have the algae coming in, it becomes toxic water. No one drinks that water.
That's a good analogy, I think. So how do you recruit people? I mean, everyone is now looking to recruit people. And I would be interested in knowing, how do you recruit? I mean, because you're recruiting to something different, a different culture than the one the rest of the world of shipping companies or logistical companies are recruiting to.
Yeah, it has been tricky. This is how I'm going to put it. It is even harder considering the type of engineering practices that we are hiring for. Again, going back to the innovation there, we have very specific engineering skills that are required for some of our functions. And if I then add on top of that, if you want to hire someone with previous logistic industry experience, then they are coming very likely from a more traditional mindset. So adding that together, it's been tricky. It's been worth it. This is how I would put it. And the way we're doing it is, up until a certain point, we didn't back down on the culture filter, this I'm going to call it, at all. We didn't bend an inch. At some point in the company growth, we had a growth wave, and we consciously lowered the culture filter a little bit. And we did see the impact it had on the business, the impact it had on the culture, the effort that you have to put in instead. This was at a time where we didn't have some of the mechanisms that we have in place today. Like today, we have a full employee development framework with the feedback mechanism put in place. So it did have an impact. What we've done today is that we've done a segregation. Like I mentioned, if you hire a senior manager, if you hire an executive, but someone that has a wider scope of business responsibilities, then we have a very high culture filter. If we hire someone who is coming on board as a junior, it's their first job, we have a lower one. So we have adapted this way.
But where do you find people? Are you looking into the tech business, or are you looking into the maritime business, or is it anyone? Not anyone from the street, I understand that, but no. Is it anywhere?
It can come from anywhere. It completely depends on the position, honestly. We have a quite intake meeting. The recruitment is the first step that we do, and I have a member of my team who is fully responsible for almost all our recruitment activities. She sits down with a hiring manager, and the intake meeting is very detailed, like it's in depth, and we capture everything that is important for that specific position. We pair that with what we already have in place. We have a competency matrix and career paths built out for every function. So we have, what do we think is important for someone to succeed as a SDR, let's say. And then we pair that with the intake meeting, and we really get an in-depth analysis of, yes, but looking at the team that we have right now, we need someone that maybe comes from the logistic industry, or we need someone with this specific background. They have a startup background, because we need someone to come in and have a more, I'm a hustler, entrepreneurial mindset. So once you combine all of those, you get a really nice candidate persona, and you go look for them. Still very tricky to find them. I will not lie. So yeah.
Yeah, I can understand where your experience from the dating app comes in now.
Yes, it's very similar actually. The persona itself. Yes. It's but it's helping a lot. You know what you're looking for, which is, I would say, if any recruiters hear this, A to Z in recruitment.
Okay, but my soapbox is that the maritime industry, which I'm representing, it's the same with the logistics industry. No one knows about us. It's the same as broadband, which I work with from time to time. No one knows about broadband until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And we are a little bit the same. The shipping industry, the logistical industry, we are delivering, and no one thinks about us until, as you said, it doesn't work anymore, which was the pandemic, and now a little bit with the different hotspots around the world, which is putting stop to, for instance, the Suez Canal transit and so on.
Yeah.
How can we become more visible? How can we tell the world that, hey, here is a very interesting job, come and work for us?
Yeah. It's a good question. I would argue, if I take a broader perspective than just looking at talent and culture or people here, I would argue that such an industry or industries, they will become visible through other topics, such as sustainability, or such as the shift of driving a change from HR to talent and culture. But it is through other topics, by being visible and being the front line of this, because again, logistic industry is very, like, if you make a change environmentally speaking in the logistic industry, you make a huge change. If you make a change in the people mindset and how you treat the workforce as an asset, you make a huge change just because it's such a big industry. So to answer your question, through other topics, I would say.
It hasn't worked yet, has it? I mean, we have been talking about sustainability.
I would argue that it's coming along.
Yes, it is. But I'm being sort of the devil's advocate here. We've been talking about sustainability for a long time. And we've been shouting for people into our industry for a long time. However, I can see that it's the young people who are coming into our industry with different knowledge than we have had here before who are making a change. I can see that.
I agree with this. Yeah. For me, this is why I am so happy to work with Aeler, because Aeler here coming in as, I would argue, a category king. We're bringing a completely new service with the weight and the importance of the topics such as sustainability as the background and the push and the drive. This makes all the difference, because to change solutions that have been there for a long time and that have worked, I'm going to do quotation marks, but that have worked good enough again, that is a massive endeavor, and it's going to take too long time. Like that's that simple. And I fully agree with you. It has to be new solutions coming in and pushing these type of agendas.
And I see a lot of young women bringing that into our industry, which makes me happy, because I'm also a sort of a fighter for equality, of course. Being a woman, being a part of the minority in our industry,
Yeah.
I think it's important that we also bring in the women and their view of things. What is your view on that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For me, I always advocate diversity across the board. I'm going to draw an analogy with our political systems just to be a little bit controversial. But we have political systems that are, there's a small group that represents a very large group. And very, very seldom do we see that small group is actually representing, if we're looking at the profiles or the personas, representative of the big group that they are indeed representing. We don't see the diversity. The big group is very diverse, but we don't see it in the small group that is representing them. And it's the same thing here. Diversity for me is something that it makes things more complex. You have different cultures, you have different thought patterns, you have different education, more importantly, which again drives me back to as soon or as long as people are open to learn, then it works. But if they're closed, yes, it's going to be very, very painful and very difficult. But you need that diversity to actually represent what is out there, how it looks, how the world looks. So women, or if we're talking just gender, female identifying, male identifying, bi gender, all of the gender identification, that is just one diversity matrix, I would argue. You need a diverse group. You need a gender diverse group. You need a nationality diverse group. You need all types of diversities.
Where do you see any progress more than at your company?
I've had a couple of interesting conversations with fellow female identifying people leaders within the industry, and they are really onto this shift, the mindset shift that I keep mentioning. I don't want to mention other names, but there's one that I spoke to not too long ago, and she literally just came in to a company that has been there for a long time, and again, the support was there from the CEO and the COO in the specific case, and it allowed her. She just scrapped the entire mechanism of people feedback, people reward, praising, compensation benefits. She scrapped it because it was rigid. It was not human. It was not people oriented, not performance oriented. It was nothing. And she was allowed to just scrap it and go, people, we're going to change things. And I want you to be part of it. And that kind of collaboration, it stirred a lot. But in the end, many people, and of course, mainly people that are, again, open, want to learn, are more open to change, they really collaborated. And they are now building what is almost a shopping mall for the employee in terms of benefits, how they can progress professionally, personal development as well. And for me, there are those type of individuals that dare to do these big shifts, to do it in a collaborative manner, because again, that's change management 101. You won't succeed otherwise. And that dare to speak up about it, those are going to make the changes.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds promising.
I'll share her name with you afterwards later, because she's an inspiration.
Oh, good. Really good. So, did you have a role model growing up, Kriss?
Yeah, my father, actually. Yes.
How come?
Well, I, just like yourself, I grew up in Sweden. And if we compare Sweden across the board, it's a quite egalitarian country in terms of gender equalities. Still has a lot to work on, but across the board, they've done a quite good job. My father did an even better job. I did not know what gender inequality was, which I cannot say how grateful I am today, because I see it, I acknowledge it, I'm aware that it is there, but I simply have not grown up with it. So it allows me to not have a mental impediment or that questioning. It helps me a lot. So it would be my father, actually.
That sounds lovely. Oh. Do you have any siblings? Do you have many siblings, or?
Yes, I do. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Yeah.
So we've got 5 change agents there, I think.
Yes, yes. More or less, more or less. They're strong personas. Let's say that.
Okay, so who do you think I should interview the next? Who would you be interested in listening to in the shipping podcast?
Well, honestly, I would love for you to interview the woman I just spoke about. Again, very conscious of naming her here in case before consent, but I would love to hear her speak on this podcast. Because she's also joined a little bit unlike myself. I mean, Aeler here is a young, innovative company. It's a new kid on the block that is definitely changing the industry up. But she's joined a company that was quite established, and she's done a tabla rasa with certain of the people mechanism. And to do that, it requires not only an iron soul, it requires a change management skill set that must be just impressive.
And braveness.
And braveness, yes. Courage, absolutely. Yes. I know. So I would like to hear her on this podcast, in all honesty.
Okay. Thank you, Kriss, for participating in the Shipping Podcast. And we will have the opportunity to listen to one of your employees, to listen to how she feels about this talent and culture in Aeler. And I'm very grateful that you're opening up and that you're sharing this with my audience.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Kriss. Now let's hear from Mariana Levtov, who recently joined Aeler and can compare the two different ways of working with human resources. This is Mariana Levtov. So, hello again, Mariana Levtov. How are you?
I'm doing great, Lena. Thank you.
You have changed your employer since the last time I spoke with you, which was in episode 203, which was released in December 2022.
Yes.
So where are you now?
I am currently working for Aeler Technologies. Aeler is a smart container manufacturer and lessor. It has all the digital part of the smart container, but on top of this is a container made out of composite material. So in the green agenda, it has 100 out of 100 score.
So you came back to me and you spoke about your experience of meeting a talent and culture team instead of instead of an HR team. So what is the difference for you as an employee?
Lena, I think it's a very interesting aspect in the time of diversification and importance of employees' well-being. I think since COVID, we read so many articles how it's important work-life balance, for example, and the support of your employer during your working hours and after. And I see many companies are trying it. Also, the company I worked before tried very hard to achieve this well-being for the employees. Aeler has a non-traditional view to the HR services, let's call it this way. First of all, it's called talent and culture. There is no HR. So we're not talking about resources that we get out of humans we employ. We are speaking about the talents that we develop and the culture that we create. The bright side of this is that you are part of a safe environment. This is the goal. Environment where your concerns can be heard, and it is not judged. I would say I speak slowly in order to choose the right words because I don't want to sound over-optimistic. Everywhere where people are involved, things can happen also in a different way than expected, right? But at least they attempt to create a safe environment. And there is the whole team that takes care of your well-being, especially if you're a manager. I am a head of a team. I have employees that work with me together, and I need to take care of their well-being, starting from their salaries and their time off and how well they are rested and integrated, hiring people, unfortunately, sometimes firing people. All this needs support and guidance, and I personally need sometimes support and guidance. And also my feelings after, for example, hiring a person or firing a person, or experiencing life experiences of my employee together with him in the process. It's something that needs supervision. I think this is something that comes from psychology. And from coaching, right? Even the best coach needs a supervision. And this is what talented culture is giving us.
So is the difference due to the fact that you're working in a small company, or did you work in a small company before as well?
I think that the sizes, in this sense, do not matter. Aeler Technologies is not a small company. It's already a mid-sized company from this point of view. It's a difference in concept. I can give you an example. I have a meeting with talent and culture once in 2 weeks that deals only with my team well-being. It could be their promotion. It could be training that they or I need, because I'm also part of my own team. And once in 2 weeks, we meet to discuss life. How do I feel? If I am not burning out, maybe I recognize already the first insights of problematic situation. Someone told me just recently, if you are Googling how to organize better your schedule, maybe you are starting to burn out. Because this person was doing a research on burning out people. They don't Google, I'm burning out, help me. They're trying to optimize what they're doing in order to find time to rest. So these things I can discuss with talent and culture, saying that maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I don't know how to approach my CEO with the same request because the company is going through challenging times. And this will be done by talent and culture in the way that will not undermine my reputation as well. So these 4 times a month supportive, short discussions, it's not too long, right? But they are constantly happening. Give me this safe environment that I'm talking about. Talent and culture motivates also my C-level to speak to me in every period of time and do basically the same, to see that we are on the same page from the teamwork point of view and from the work-life balance point of view. I think that companies that are trying to focus on low-hanging fruits can say it's a waste of time. Since last year, I love very much a sentence, low-hanging fruits rotten fast. If you don't invest long-term into your employees, you will be having no people to collect the fruits that are hanging either low or high.
So how would you describe the culture at Aeler? What is the difference from your previous employments?
What I'm going to say now can be both positive and sometimes negative, especially for those who are just joining. Culture that is trying to create a safe environment can be not necessarily very welcoming for those who don't experience it. We are talking about creating an atmosphere of collaboration, directness, but knowing that we can make mistakes, make wrong judgments, can apologize, come back and continue working together and not need to worry about a certain political games. This is very natural. I'm not talking about a paradise. No one reached the paradise, but at least to try to speak out things and say, look, today I'm not feeling super 100% positive, right? And I have concerns about this deal, for example, that we are working on. And those are my concerns. And I will be heard. And I wouldn't shut down. I would have the place to express my opinion and see how my opinion is taken into consideration. And if it's not taken into consideration, I will get an answer why not. No means no and yes means yes. And I think today it's very important. I saw how people promise you and say, yes, your opinion is so valuable for us. Like in these questionnaires after you finish the service call, please leave your feedback. Your opinion is so valuable for us. And then you don't know where it gone. Here, you know that your opinion is valuable. And you can ask for feedback if you didn't receive it, and you will get it. I think this is it. For someone who is not experienced with it and is not willing to experience such a thing, will be challenging. It would be hard. For those who feel uncomfortable in the beginning and don't understand what it means, talent and culture will offer help as much as they can in order to enable a smooth integration.
So you are also hiring people together with your talent and culture team, I understand.
When it relates to me and to my team, yes. When I need to have a new employee in my team, we will go through this process together.
So what is the process? How is that different from what you have experienced before?
It is similar, very similar to what everyone is doing in hiring process, but one of the considerations is the team playing side and how it fits to our culture. If a person is too bossy, for example, and is going to be one of the management team, even if he has a perfect resume and amazing records, we understand that it will be very challenging to work together with him. When a person is not listening, it will be also a big challenge. So we would probably give up on a very good profile, but we will win good collaboration within the teams. We also try to create an equal atmosphere where there is transparency on where people are at this moment, where they want to go, how they want to develop. We have development programs, and financial benefits are directly dependent on this. We are not buying out employees for a lot of money only because either they have had a huge record somewhere else or because they belong to a competitor and we want to buy them out, independently if they fit to this culture or not.
So you would rather continue to work for companies with a talent and culture team than a human resource team in the future?
This is a very good question. What is here important? Is the name important, human resources or talent and culture, or the content? Let's say like this, doesn't matter how this department should be called. It's important how it's driven and what are the values of the company, of this team, of this person who is helping you to integrate. I think this is the key. It can be called, doesn't matter how it's called, can be called either way. What is critical, that human values are part of the company values. The work-life balance is one of the key factors for HR to measure, right, the level of integration. Now I want to provoke you and me, Lena, a little bit in this question. I know there is a generational gap in expectations from employment. I believe I a little bit belong to your generation that can work hard independently from the working hours in order to reach the goal. This is part of the real leadership. Leadership is responsibility. And if you are a leader at your work, you are taking responsibility for the product and for the company, even if it's not your own. And here, the challenge is actually, yes, to burn out or to overwork so much that you will neglect your own health. It's not because we want to work less and to be paid more, and we demand the balance between work and life, and we work only 2-3 hours and then we're surfing somewhere in the warm seas, right? It's not about this. It's definitely not about this. But it's about being able to raise a flag and say, look, I'm running this already for long. Yes, it's a marathon, as everyone says, and not a sprint, but I feel that it was a sprint quite a long time. And right now I need to rest, right? I need to slow down. It doesn't mean that I'm less productive. It doesn't mean that I'm focusing less on achievements of the company. Yes, I just need to have this a little bit time for regroup myself, right? So it should be not misunderstood. It's especially healthy for those who don't know to manage it themselves. This is the point, I think.
I think you're right. There is a generational sort of, not misunderstanding, but we need to understand that we're talking about the same things and not only look upon things from our own standpoint, but to maybe stand in the shoes of someone else.
Yes. You know, HR or talent and culture, however it is called, is part of the company's success. If managers and employees feel supported, if they can express their worries and sometimes their emotions as well, right? They can say, I'm angry right now. I'm disappointed. I'm upset. And you can say it somewhere, but not to the face of this particular person, because maybe your judgment is wrong at this moment, right? But you can discuss it with a supervisor whose responsibility is to keep this information behind the closed doors. This is also a very important aspect, right? The trust, the level of trust. Then you can manage this company better. So I'm not envying people working for talent and culture. It's a huge responsibility. It's more than psychologists even. You know so many secrets you are not allowed to share. Being yourself an employee, getting salaries from the same company and wanting same things for yourself, for your own well-being as well. So I hope they also have a supervision by themselves. They can't all the time take this heavy load from everyone.
Thank you, Mariana, for sharing your wisdom with us, and also that we could hear Kriss talking about how she views being head of talent and culture in Aeler. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Every conversation matters.
Thank you, Mariana and Kriss. I think we have kicked off a few brains and encouraged a few trailblazers to make the next move. It's encouraging to hear that in the business lines where most women in maritime work, there is a way to start the change. Let's move forward and make a difference. That's all for now. If you want to give feedback, drop me a line at hello@shippingpodcast.com. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.